Thank you all for coming today. For those of you that don't know me, this is Zach Snyder. I'm the head of advisory here at Red Pepper. I'm a former qualitrician and really excited to be here today. For those of you that might not know Red Pepper, we are a full service partner of Qualtrics, and we're here and dedicated to helping you as AEs with this process. And we're really laser focused in two areas. One, we're committed to helping you sell because as a close partner of Qualtrics, we don't eat unless you eat. So we recognize that and we're here to make those deals happen. And two, we want to make sure that your customers are well supported after the sales cycle ends. And we can provide that help in a couple of ways. We have the technical wizardry to help your customers stand up Qualtrics and make the programs work. That could be a simple implementation, or that could be a retainer where we're in it for the long haul, helping them with needs as they arise. The other side of the coin is the advisory side. And this is all the stuff that gets lumped around the software that Qualtrics provide to help stand up these programs and make them sing. Could be as simple as tuning up a survey to make sure we're asking the right questions. This could be us generating a report to make sure that the data that they generate is actionable. It could be action planning workshops to make sure that those insights are then translated into organizational change, because that's where the true value tends to come into play. As part of our commitment to you, we have added to our bench depth, and we have added David Futrell. He is an IO psychologist. He has a great deal of wisdom and depth of experience in the employee engagement space. He's worked at Walmart and Eli Lilly for a bunch of years, and he's done it all in this space. Standing up programs to making sure that the analytics are in place and are fully operational. So very excited to be able to introduce him and have him have a chance to explain what he does. So over to you, David.
All right. Well, thanks, Zach. Well, I'll kind of give you my life story as quickly as I can. When I hesitate to do this, I don't really like talking about myself that much. And when I watch shows like The Voice, the thing I hate most is whenever they start giving all these backstories before you even find out if the person can sing or not. So I'm hoping not to do that. And most of the backstory stuff here is relevant for what I hope to be helping you guys with going forward. So I'm from Western Kentucky. I was the first person in my family to even consider going to college. I actually went to vocational school for a year after high school and started out as a Mazda mechanic. And after a couple of months of that, I had an epiphany that I didn't want to be doing that for the rest of my life. So I enrolled in college that fall at a little school called Murray State in Western Kentucky, and didn't think I would ever use my mechanic skills again. But I worked at the Mazda dealership in Murray the whole time I was in college, so provided me with beer money and more experience on how the car repair business works, and that'll become relevant again in a minute. When I finished college at Murray, I went to grad school at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville in IO Psych. I didn't really know what IO Psych was, but I thought I was going to be a clinical psychologist until we took a field trip once to a mental institution, and I saw what real psychologists actually have to deal with, and decided I wanted no part of that. So maybe that's epiphany number two. And but the IO stuff sounded interesting. I started doing that, finished my coursework, and then this internship came open at Saturn Corporation. And for those of you who are old enough, Saturn was a car company that started up in 1990. It was a brand new experiment between General Motors and the United Auto Workers to figure out if there was a different way to build cars, and as well as a different way to manage labor and run dealerships. So it was certainly a once in a lifetime opportunity to work there. I helped hire the first 5,000 production workers for the plant, designing that selection process. And then when I finished the internship, I was trying to figure out what to do next. And this job posting popped up literally on a bulletin board. And what they wanted was someone to lead a data analysis team that worked on service data. So the person needed two qualifications. One was they had to have a deep understanding of statistics and data analysis, and they had to understand how car repairs actually happen in the field and the dealership and the kind of data that it generates. So I was thinking there's maybe two people on the planet that are qualified to do this job, and this one popped up like 80 feet from where I was sitting. So I took that position, started a small data analysis team, and did that for a couple of years. Finished my dissertation, and then went to work for a small external consulting company called Qualpro in Knoxville, Tennessee. They hired me because they wanted to build survey-based measures to use what you guys call CX now, CX measures as outcome measures for the process improvement stuff they were working on, which was very similar to what you would call Six Sigma now, and also to do some EX stuff to figure out how to make these work teams function better. So I built those survey platforms for them, and then kind of got into their general business, learned a lot about process improvement and experimental design. Got to see the world, or at least the United States, traveling every week, and I liked the job and was pretty good at it. And then I suddenly found myself divorced with sole custody of an 8-year-old daughter, and so the external consulting and traveling every weekdays were over. So I lucked into this position at Eli Lilly in Indianapolis. I was hired by a guy named Alan Colquitt. He was a great boss. I worked for him the whole time that I was there, which was 16 years. And we did every imaginable thing related to measuring people and using people as measurement systems. We were among the first companies to really think about a life cycle survey process. So we had engagement surveys in place, and then we made this crazy decision that we were going to, instead of doing it annually, we were going to do it monthly. So we built a process where we effectively surveyed a 1/12 of the population every single month. So over the course of the year, you'd only get surveyed once, but we would get data every month. And we did that for 5 years, learned some cool things from that process. And then we also kind of played that into the other ends of the life cycle. So we had an exit survey in place that we got a lot of value out of, and that's one of the things I'll talk about in the upcoming webinar, is going into more detail on that. But we also put an onboarding survey in place, and in our version, we ended up with 3 touch points. We measured it at 8 weeks, 6 months, and 1 year, and then we moved even further back in the process and put a survey in at the offer stage, so we could look at candidates who accepted the offer at Lilly versus those who declined the offer, and that allowed us to differentiate those and figure out, some things about our brand, and what were the factors that led people to like or not like the job offers so much. So that was cool. Really, a lot of deep survey work. Lilly was a part of, and I assume they still are, part of the Mayflower Group, which is a survey consortium that benchmarks survey practices and data. And I was on the board for Mayflower for several years, and was president in 2010. So I'm really very well integrated with the employee survey community through that experience. So the other things that we did at Lilly, though, were not just like collecting data. We really wanted to see, what it meant. What can you do with this stuff? How can you connect different pieces of this together? So the obvious thing with the life cycle surveys is you'd like to be able to look at someone's onboarding survey and see if it can predict whether they'll leave or when they'll leave. So you can do all that stuff, and it's fun and not terribly difficult. But we also looked at things that I thought were a little bit meatier. We did a lot of projects where we would connect the exit survey results to really try to figure out what was going on. So one of the things that we found, and that I have no doubt that many of your clients do, is that their immediate solution to try to solve a retention problem is to throw money at it. So you either try to increase your salary because people leave you because you're not paying enough, or you actually will take your existing employees and pay them some sort of retention bonus to keep them in involved in the business. So one of the really interesting projects that I did there was what we called the retention bonus study. So we looked at a lot of information about what happened to people whenever we would pay them to leave, and these things can be structured in a couple of ways. And if we have time, I'll talk in more detail about it a couple of slides from now. But we learned a lot about what it takes to make people stay and why they end up leaving. So a couple of other things about when we're talking about retention is trying to differentiate between whether someone is a loss that you care about or one that you don't. So and you'll hear various terms for this, but one of them is called regretted losses. And this turns out to be extraordinarily difficult to measure. So when we did this retention bonus project, we were looking at only fairly senior leaders, like senior director and higher in the company, very well-paid positions. And we would look at these folks and say, well, we don't want to lose them, so let's give them something. And so the something would usually take the form of either basically a loan that you don't have to repay as long as you stay around for the duration of that retention bonus contract, or you do something similar in terms of stock. And this was big money. I mean, these were things that a typical individual would be getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in each of these retention events. Now, what was interesting about this was that at the time that we were paying these retention bonuses, we obviously loved these people. If you didn't, you wouldn't be spending money to try to keep them there. But when we went back and looked at the data, and we did this very carefully, and even had the former CEO of Lilly go over this list and look at these individuals and make a judgment call as to the ones who left. It's like, was this really a regretted loss or not? And we ended up finding that only about a third of the people were coded as a regretted loss after the fact. And this is a third of the people who we gave a bunch of money to stay. So obviously, we would have classified them as being a regrettable loss at the time we gave them the money. But whenever you look at things retrospectively after the fact, when someone else has come in and taken the job, they don't look nearly as valuable as they did at the time that you made those decisions. So when we talk about in the webinar, we'll talk about where and when you should actually measure a regrettable loss. And the answer is you want to code someone as whether they would be regrettable before they leave, because after they leave, then you've got a lot of rationalization and other things going on that may keep you from being able to see that clearly. So one other little topic on the retention thing that I'll give you a nugget on is that companies often equate exit interviews and exit surveys as being the same thing or substitutable. The way that exit surveys normally work is it's something that happens face to face with either an HR person, or in some really bad cases the supervisor, where you're asking someone at the time that they're leaving the company, what was it that made you leave? Now, the demand characteristics of that situation are very weird for the person leaving, because the only thing standing between them and the sweet freedom that they're desiring is this stupid interview with HR. And whenever you get the data back from those, they tend to be very vague, and you'll get lots of responses that would go in the category of personal reasons, or career options, or I found a better job. But what you don't hear them say is, I hated my boss at least during that exit interview. In some cases, we don't do those now, but we code exit reasons in almost every situation. And one of the bad things that has happened with platforms, particularly with Workday, is that they've given a lot of responsibility, which used to belong to HR, and given it to the supervisor. So in most cases that I'm aware of now, the person who actually codes the exit reason is the supervisor. And it shouldn't be a surprise that supervisors hardly ever tell you that someone left because they hated their boss or they didn't think their boss was doing a very good job. So when we were at Lilly, we had data from our exit survey and the reasons that we had coded exits in the system. And we compared it to our exit survey. And so we would do our exit surveys usually at 6 weeks after someone left. We started out doing these by mail, I mean, Scantron forms and business reply envelopes. And later we moved it to an email platform. But we always got decent response rates on this. We would, for sales reps, which is where we started it, we would get more than 50% of them back. It wasn't quite as high after we went to the email platform, but it was always a decent response rate. And because we collected the data in a non-anonymous way, we always were careful to manage confidentiality, but we also, we're strong believers and you had to be able to identify individuals to do any of this linkage research. We found that there was very poor agreement between how people were coded in a system and what they really tell you 6 weeks later when they don't have any reasons to lie or to be vague about their reason for exiting. So that's one of the things that we'll also talk about is like the whether an exit survey has a place in your process. And the additional value you can get out of doing an actual exit survey that occurs after the fact. So I'm happy to take questions at any point, but we could probably go ahead and move on to the next slide. So one of the things that I think that I can help with on these sales calls is that because have worked in the multiple companies with EX kinds of data across a variety of process improvement and Six Sigma and other kinds of projects, I tend to think a little bit differently about this. I understand that some companies just want to put a survey in place because it seems like the right thing to do, and we want to listen to our employees, and that's fine. But it's so much more valuable if you can really figure out what does the client or the company actually want to know? What are they trying to fix? Are they trying to fix retention? Are they trying to figure out if they're getting the right people in the company in the first place? Are they trying to prioritize what the various things that they could do for their employees are? So, I mean, do you want to spend more money on having a great facility, or do you want to spend money on giving them an education platform where they can get a college degree at little or no cost? So various ways that you can, actually use the data. So I like to, to really get into it and ask that those probing questions to go 2 or 3 levels down, and then get them to think through the data that they care about, which probably isn't the survey data, and then figure out how we can utilize the survey data or the survey platform to help them, really get at their the things that they want to improve upon. And I'll be happy to take any questions or be more specific about those. But it's fairly organic. I mean, you just need to be able to have the mindset to kind of dig in and then figure out how the puzzle pieces fit together, or how what part of the puzzle pieces that they're actually interested in. So examples of the impact that some of these things have had. Whenever we were working at Lilly, we learned that there were some big gender differences in the reason that people would leave. So I have a particular way that I like to structure employee surveys. I like to start with kind of a macro perspective and first get them to tell me whether they left because they were dissatisfied with something about the job or the company, or they were generally satisfied, but something came along that was too good to pass up, or something that was completely unrelated to the job or the company. Like my example of leaving Qualpro to work for Eli Lilly. I was perfectly happy with the job, but something happened in my personal life that caused me to have to leave that position. So when we would look at our exit survey data, you would find that far more females would leave because of those non-work related reasons. And but that doesn't mean that they're not fixable problems. So we would dig into that more deeply, and if they found that they couldn't advance from a sales rep to a district sales manager because it required them to move, it turned out to be much more difficult for females to move than it was for males in those roles. So the company made some changes to develop sales reps in the field, and we were able to reduce that gender gap, at least for that particular position. The biggest impacts that I've had with on the business side have been not as much on the survey work as in the selection work. So when I was at Walmart, the cool thing about that job was I got to lead a team, and we were testing about 15,000 people a day on the survey platform. So we would, the turnover was over 100%. So we were turning over more than 1.5 million people a year. So you're testing 5 million people a year, hiring over 1 million a year. So anything that you can do with the pre-employment test that differentiate the people that are more likely to stay than those who leave is worth more money than anyone will believe whenever you try to actually talk about what the value is of that. So we made a lot of progress on that, and then having some exit survey data there was also helpful. So I'm going to shut up now. I've been talking nonstop for several minutes, and let Zach tell us where he wants to go.
Yeah, awesome, David. I mean, every time we chat, I always learn something about EX. So really appreciate your thoughts here. So David is available to help join sales calls. And if you're trying to determine whether or not it's the right fit for your need, just ask. Myself, David, Stacy, we can be a good resource to understand where we can be helpful. David will definitely be at his best when we are trying to address program strategy, right? So if we need help selling Qualtrics tech, that's not where David will lean in most. But if you need help to make people confident that they can do the things they need to do with the technology to make sure they'll be well supported post-sale, that's where David is really going to shine. So when you have requests, the absolute best way to get a fast response is to reach out to Stacy Teeney. She's our executive assistant, and you see her email address there, and she's also available on Slack. Like any sales call, the more preparation we have, the better our performance will be on these calls. So if you can come to us with a sense of, what the organization goals are, what the program goals are, some of the challenges that your customers are up against, that will help us sort of figure out our strategy, help us ask the right questions during discovery, and really get to the heart of the matter. Aside from that, it's always good to know a bit more about the organization. So we love to know how they make their money. That always seems to be helpful. And if you sense that the customer has any FUD, any fear, uncertainty, and doubt about this whole process, that's where we can dive in and really provide a bunch of reassurance. You've gotten a taste of what David can do, but we are also doing a webinar in mid-November. We're going to email some collateral to everyone on this call just so you can start inviting potential customers to go much deeper on the exit survey interview process. So we're committed to providing more content to keep on building credibility in the space, and that's a great example of that. So with just a few minutes left, were there any questions for David while we're all here together?
Well, we're waiting. One thing that I will say, and I should have said this in my very long intro, I'm a huge Qualtrics fan. I started using the Qualtrics 360 platform at Walmart, and then started going to some of the summits. I've been to several of the summits. I think it's just a fantastic tool. Not the 360 platform specifically, but just the QualPro, or the Qualtrics platform in general. It's super flexible, and I really like it. And I have a pretty good understanding of how it works, which would, at least won't be a detriment if I'm helping you on a sales call.
Awesome. Looks like we have a question from Annie.
Hi, David. Thanks so much. Your background is super interesting. I have been on quite a few EX calls lately, and the biggest question I get repeatedly is like how much advisory they need. And I was curious kind of if you have a perspective on how to, walk them through that scenario or ask questions to deliver the right amount of value there.
Well, it's very dependent on what they actually want to accomplish whenever they're putting an EX program in place. And in many cases, all they want to do is like get some cool data on a dashboard and don't really have any intention of doing anything with it other than having the cool data on a dashboard. So if you get the sense that that's where they're going with it, then they probably don't need a ton. They need more tech support and figuring out how do you build it and whether it makes sense. I think where they would need more advisory is where they want to connect it to something else. I mean, do you actually want to take the data from your EX program and show that that something else you're doing, like adding a benefit to the company, is having an impact on these things? That's where I think they would need more advisory work from someone like me. But that's also where the value is. If you actually want to to know whether some intervention you're doing in HR is making a difference, then that's what you have to do.
Also worth calling out, you don't have to go it alone. So bring us in on calls. We can help do the discovery. We can really figure out what their needs are and then tailor our proposal just to cover those bits. So don't feel like you have to get everything figured out before you talk to us. We're happy to get in the wet cement with you and sort that out.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, looks like that's all the time we have. So thank you so much for showing up, and thank you, David. Great insights.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Take care, everyone.